Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about a fascinating woman named Molly Mae Hague.
Molly Mae.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a UK influencer and businesswoman. I think most people know her from the reality show Love Island.
Hmm.
But she's also the creative director of Pretty Little Thing, a pretty huge fast fashion brand. And she's only 24.
I know, it's crazy, right? She's accomplished so much at such a young age. It's honestly pretty inspiring.
Yeah, and her story is a lot more complex than you might think at first glance.
Hmm.
We're basing this deep dive on her interview on The Diary of a CEO.
Oh, yeah, Stephen Bartlett's YouTube channel, right?
Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
long one, so we're going to be pulling out the most interesting bits, breaking it all down for you.
It's funny, I went into this thinking it would be like a typical rags to riches influencer story, but it's so much more nuanced than that.
Yeah, there's a lot more depth to her than just, Instagram posts and brand deals.
Okay, so before we get too deep, let's give everyone a little background on Molly Mae. So yeah, she was on Love Island, but where did she come from before that?
Well, she's from a small town in England called Hitchin. Both her parents were police officers.
Interesting. So pretty traditional upbringing then.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
But even as a kid, she had this a burning desire to create a life that was anything but ordinary.
She talks about that in the interview, right? Like she was almost afraid of living an ordinary life.
Exactly. Like it was this driving force for her, this fear of just blending in.
And that's what led her to move to Manchester at 18 to pursue a career in fashion.
Yep. Pretty bold move for a small town girl, don't you think?
For sure. It shows she was willing to take risks to chase her dreams.
Okay, so Love Island, obviously a huge turning point in her career.
Yeah, it's what really put her on the map.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how she views it.
How so?
She's really adamant that it was just a platform and opportunity, not the sole reason for her success.
I think I read a quote where she said that everyone from the show starts on a level playing field afterwards, and it's what you do with that platform that matters. Exactly. She's basically saying, okay, the show gave me exposure, but I built everything that came after through hard work and making smart decisions.
Which is a really empowering message, right? It's not just about getting lucky, it's about what you do with that luck.
And that applies to so many things in life, not just reality TV. It's about seizing opportunities and making the most of them.
And Molly Mae definitely seized her opportunity. And she's known for being a relentless worker.
Oh yeah, she's all about maximizing every hour of the day. Like she operates on a different time zone than the rest of us.
I know it's a little intimidating, but also super inspiring.
Right. Like how does she get so much done? But it's not just about working hard, it's about working smart.
So give me an example. Like, how does she work smart?
Well, for example, remember that £2 million brand deal she turned down?
Yeah, that seemed crazy at the time.
Right. Like who turns down that kind of money? But she explains in the interview that it didn't align with her long-term vision for her brand. It wasn't the right fit.
So it wasn't just about the money. It was about protecting her brand identity and staying true to her values, which is pretty impressive for someone so young.
Yeah, shows she's thinking long-term and not just chasing quick cash. She's building something sustainable.
And I think that's a key takeaway for anyone building a business or even a personal brand. It's about aligning your actions with your values and your vision for the future.
Absolutely. It's not just about the short-term gains, it's about playing the long game.
So it sounds like Molly Mae is a lot more than just a pretty face. She's a savvy businesswoman with a clear vision for her future.
Definitely. And she's not afraid to make tough decisions to protect that vision.
Which I think is really admirable. But, you know, it's easy to get caught up in the hype of influencer culture and forget that there's a real person behind those carefully curated Instagram posts.
Right, and that real person has vulnerabilities and struggles just like anyone else.
And in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore those vulnerabilities and challenges, the not-so-glamorous side of fame that Molly Mae has been open about sharing.
Because it's a good reminder that success doesn't make you immune to life's ups and downs.
And sometimes it can even amplify those ups and downs.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we delve into the darker side of Molly Mae's experience with online trolling, privacy concerns, and even a terrifying home burglary.
We'll be right back after a quick week. Okay, so we've talked about all the amazing things Molly Mae has accomplished, but let's be real. Fame isn't always glamorous.
It's true. Behind the perfectly curated Instagram feed, there's a real person who faces real challenges.
And Molly Mae has been pretty open about the darker side of her experience.
Yeah, she talks about everything from online trolling to privacy concerns to even a terrifying home burglary.
It's a good reminder that success doesn't make you immune to life's difficulties.
In some ways, it can even magnify those difficulties.
One of the biggest things she's talked about is online trolling.
Yeah, she shared this story about how A paparazzi photo of her in a bikini went viral,
Hmm.
and it led to just a ton of hateful comments about her body.
It's heartbreaking to hear how that impacted her self-esteem, especially since she's been open about struggling with body image in the past.
It just shows you the dark side of online culture, right? People feel so empowered to say things they'd never say to someone's face.
It's like they forget there's a real person on the other side of the screen.
And it really highlights the impossible beauty standards that women in the public eye are held to.
Absolutely. It's this constant pressure to look perfect all the time.
And that pressure is even more intense for influencers because their whole brand is built around their personal lives.
Right, so every aspect of their lives is subject to scrutiny and judgment.
It's like the line between personal and professional gets completely blurred.
And then on top of that, you have the issue of privacy, which became a huge concern for Molly Mae after the burglary.
Yeah, that incident was a real turning point for her.
She talks about how violating it felt to have her personal space invaded, and how that feeling of vulnerability lingered for a long time.
It made her rethink how open she is on social media and what she shares with the world.
It's a tough balance, right? Wanting to connect with your audience, but also needing to protect your safety and well-being.
Yeah, it's a trade-off that a lot of public figures have to grapple with.
And it's not easy. Molly Mae talks about having to change so many of her habits, like not getting deliveries sent to her home anymore.
She even stopped having her nail technician come over.
Things most people don't even have to think about.
It makes you realize that fame comes with a whole set of hidden costs.
It's not all glitz and glam like it might seem on Instagram.
Okay, but let's shift gears a bit and talk about Molly Mae's journey as a businesswoman.
Yeah, her role as creative director at Pretty Little Thing is a whole other chapter in her story.
It's interesting to see how traditional industries are evolving and embracing influencer marketing.
I mean, let's be honest, when they announced her appointment at 22, there were a lot of skeptical people.
Yeah, people questioned whether she had the experience to handle such a high-profile position.
And it's interesting to hear her talk about that experience, the challenges she faced and the lessons she learned.
She admits that she sometimes felt like an imposter, especially in those high-level meetings with experienced executives.
I can only imagine being 22 and suddenly being thrown into a boardroom talking about things like profit margins.
Stuff she hadn't really dealt with in her world of fashion blogging and social media.
But she was so willing to learn and adapt.
Yeah, she didn't pretend to know everything. She wasn't afraid to ask questions and seek guidance.
Which is so important. You don't have to have all the answers to be successful, but you have to be willing to learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's about surrounding yourself with people who can support you and fill in your knowledge gaps.
Like her manager, Fran, they have this incredibly close relationship.
They even share hotel rooms when they travel for work.
That's amazing. It shows a level of trust and friendship that you don't always see in those kinds of professional relationships.
It just highlights how important it is to have a strong support system, especially in such a demanding industry.
Now, of course, there's been some criticism of Molly Mae's involvement with Pretty Little Thing.
Right. Some people point out that she's promoting fast fashion, which has a lot of negative impacts on the environment and on workers.
It's a valid concern, and she does address it in the interview.
Yeah, she acknowledges the problems within the industry and talks about the efforts she's making to promote sustainability and ethical sourcing.
She's also very clear that she's still learning about these complex issues.
And that she wants to use her role to make a positive impact.
But it's important to remember that she's just one person within a massive corporation.
Systemic change takes time, and it requires effort from everyone involved.
I think what I appreciate about Molly Mae is that she doesn't shy away from these tough conversations.
Yeah, she's willing to acknowledge the criticisms and engage in those difficult discussions.
It shows a level of maturity and self-awareness that's really refreshing.
It's about using your platform to advocate for what you believe in, even if it means having uncomfortable conversations.
Okay, so now let's talk about something a little more personal. Molly Mae's relationship with Tommy Fury.
Ah, the Love Island romance that actually lasted.
They've been together for a while now, which is pretty rare for couples who meet on reality TV.
And it's clear from the interview that their relationship for both of them.
She talks about him with so much affection and respect.
They seem to have this really solid foundation built on shared values and mutual support.
And it's amazing that they've been able to maintain such a strong bond despite the constant pressure and scrutiny that comes with their fame.
They seem to have a very grounded approach to their relationship, prioritizing quality time and keeping their personal lives relatively private.
It's like they've created their own little world away from the craziness of the public eye.
And it's a good reminder that fame and fortune don't guarantee happiness.
True happiness comes from the people you surround yourself with and the quality of your relationships.
Absolutely. Now, in the last part of our deep dive, we'll be exploring Molly Mae's evolving relationship with ambition and some of the key takeaways from her journey so far.
We'll be right back. So, in the last part, we were talking about how open Molly Mae is about the challenges of fame and just life in general.
Yeah, she doesn't try to pretend she's got it all figured out.
And one thing that really stood out to me was how honest she is about her own internal struggles.
Like feeling like she's not always enough, even with all her success.
Right. It's something so many people can relate to, that feeling of never quite measuring up.
Yeah, no matter how much you achieve, there's always that little voice whispering, is this enough?
And for Molly Mae, that feeling seems to be both a motivator and a source of conflict.
It drives her to achieve more, but it also makes it hard to just be present and appreciate what she already has.
Exactly. She talks about having to consciously remind herself to slow down and savor her accomplishments.
It's so easy to get caught up in that constant striving for more, always looking ahead to the next goal.
And I think that's a really important message, especially in today's world. It's like we've forgotten how to just be to enjoy the journey.
Yeah, it's all about hustle and grind and achieving the next big thing.
But Molly Mae's starting to realize that true success isn't just about external achievements.
It's also about personal growth and meaningful relationships and using your platform for good.
And that brings us to a really interesting decision she made a few years ago, removing her fillers and composite bonding.
Right, that was a pretty big deal, especially in the influencer world where there's so much emphasis on a certain look.
For those who don't know, composite bonding is a cosmetic dental procedure that can change the shape and size of your teeth.
And fillers, of course, are injectables that can plump up lips and smooth out wrinkles.
And Molly Mae was very open about having both of those procedures done when she was younger.
Which is totally understandable. A lot of young people experiment with their appearance.
But then she decided to reverse those procedures and embrace a more natural look.
Which I think was incredibly brave, especially in an industry that often promotes a very specific and often unattainable standard of beauty.
She talked about how social media played a role in her initial decision to get fillers feeling pressure to conform to a certain aesthetic.
It's crazy how social media can distort our perceptions of beauty and make us feel like we need to change ourselves to fit in.
And her decision to go back to a more natural look was like a statement saying, this is me and I'm happy with who I am.
And it sparked some really important conversations about body image and self-acceptance.
It was a reminder that true beauty comes from within, from confidence and self-love.
And I think that's something Molly Mae embodies. She's so willing to be vulnerable and share both her triumphs and her struggles.
Yeah, she doesn't shy away from talking about her insecurities or her anxieties or the challenges she's faced.
It makes her so relatable, even to those of us who aren't living in the influencer world.
It's like she's saying, hey, I'm just a normal person figuring things out as I go.
And that authenticity is so refreshing in a world that's often so carefully curated and filtered.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on Molly Mae Hague, what are your final thoughts?
You know, I think her story is a reminder that success isn't a straight line. There are going to be twists and turns, setbacks and triumphs along the way.
And it's not always about reaching a specific destination.
It's about the journey, the lessons you learn, the growth you experience.
And it's about defining success on your own terms, not letting society or social media dictate what success should look like for you.
Molly Mae's story is an inspiration. It's about hard work, resilience, and staying true to your values.
It's about embracing your vulnerabilities and using your platform to make a positive impact on the world.
And it's about remembering that true beauty comes from within, from self-acceptance and self-love.
And with that, we come to the end of our deep dive into the life and career of Molly Mae Hague.
We hope you enjoyed this exploration of her journey and that you took away some valuable insights for your own life.
Remember, success isn't a destination, it's a journey. And it's a journey that's unique to each and every one of us.
So go out there and create your own story. Embrace the challenges, celebrate the victories, and never stop learning and growing.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.